So as we gather for this 127th session of the Monetary Policy Committee, the data before us is quite revealing. It paints a very different picture from where Ghana stood barely a year ago. From the data, the economy has turned a decisive corner. Inflation is not only back within the target band, it has eased faster than we anticipated. The exchange rate has remained broadly stable, and the external buffers that we have is quite strong. And perhaps most encouraging, the real sector is showing signs of sustained revival. The staff briefing that we have confirms that the initial conditions for this meeting are the strongest we have had in several years. Headline inflation is at 8.0%. Core inflation measures are between 5 and 7%, and expectations remain well anchored. The cedi has demonstrated resilience in 2025, supported by improved confidence, strong operational reforms in the FX market, and robust trade and reserve inflows. Gross reserves, on the other hand, have risen to over 11 billion US dollars, which are equivalent to 4.8 months of imports cover. And these are projected to reach 5 months by the year end. What stands out, colleagues, this quarter is the broad momentum in economic activity. Growth has been stronger and more diversified than anticipated. And I can give you the details. The first half of the year recorded 6.3% GDP growth. This was driven mainly by vibrant expansion in services and agriculture, while non-oil GDP surged to 7.8%. Our high-frequency indicators that we monitor also echo this trend. That is, the composite index of economic activity suggests an increase of about 9%, and business and consumer sentiments also remain firmly positive. Taken together, these gains confirm that the negative output gap is narrowing, and the economy is gradually shifting from recovery to expansion. But the turnaround is not accidental. It reflects our sustained fiscal discipline, the cautious but determined monetary stance, and structural policy reforms, particularly the improvements in the FX operations framework and the rebuilding of our external buffers. The 2026 budget that was just presented reinforces this discipline and places growth and job creation at the center of Ghana's next phase of economic transformation. Looking ahead, the growth outlook remains favorable. Staff projections, supported by recent real sector indicators, suggest that the economy will maintain a steady expansion path throughout next year, 2026. The strong harvest season, improved food supply dynamics, enhanced FX liquidity, and the easing credit environment, these all provide support for continued growth into next year. The non-oil sectors, services, industry, and agriculture are all expected to remain the key drivers. So the broader macro also supports this trajectory. Money supply growth has moderated significantly, helping anchor inflation. Real rates remain high, creating room for a carefully calibrated easing cycle. And with inflation likely to settle between 4 to 6% by year end, before stabilizing around the target band in 2026, Ghana is entering what could become a multi-year period of price stability. At the same time, the global environment remains fragile, and we must remain alert to the risks. Talking about commodity price savings, commodity price swings, geopolitical tensions, and tighter external financial conditions. On the domestic front, pressures around taxes, utilities, and cost of credit continue to weigh on business activity, even amid improved optimism. So for today's deliberations, colleagues, there are three areas that deserve our most careful attention. The first one is the pace of disinflation and the real interest rate path. As inflation declines faster than projected, the real interest rates have risen sharply compared to our last meeting. The staff analysis shows scope for gradual easing, but the balance must preserve credibility and avoid undermining the disinflation gains. The second area I want to point out is the FX market, talking about the reforms and also our reserve strategy. While the new FX operations framework that we introduced has improved transparency and market functioning, staff have highlighted the need to educate the public and to diversify reserve assets so as to limit concentration risks, particularly around gold holdings. Then the third area is the financial sector stability and credit transmission. The banking sector remains sound, as you will find from the data, but asset quality and recapitalization risks for a few institutions need to be addressed. Indeed, a healthy credit channel is essential to sustaining the emerging growth momentum that we are observing. Colleagues, Ghana's macroeconomic path is clearly stabilizing, and the foundations for sustained growth are strengthening. The task before us this morning is to protect the stability while supporting the real sector's recovery. And our decisions today must reinforce confidence, signal predictability, and keep the economy on its path toward higher job-rich growth. I look forward to your perspectives as we examine the data more closely, and I agree on the policy stance that best balances these priorities. I thank you for your attention.